Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So nothing fancy about this video. In fact, I'm shooting it with my cell phone. I was actually about to sit down and start working on the video for the new DJI Osmo Action, but I thought I'd take a minute to talk about some of the other videos that you guys may have seen already about the FAA's new regulation for hobbyist pilots in controlled airspace. Just give you my opinion. I mean, I'm not a Part 107 holder. I'm just going to give you my opinion, sort of a rant on this video about what I think about the new regulations. I'm just going to get into it. So if you're new to the hobby and you're not a 107 holder, or you're not one of those guys who even thought about going to look up FAA regulations about drones, to register your drone, or even follow some of the basic rules or find out what the basic rules are about drone piloting, or not even drone piloting, any UAS, like in this situation, I think these rules actually affect model aircraft pilots too. You're probably not going to follow the rules. Similar to gun regulations, if you're not going to follow the rules, you're not going to follow the rules. So these rules don't really affect those people. These going to affect the people, you guys like myself. I started to get my Part 107, I guess, certification, but then I kind of got busy and I backed off of it and didn't happen. People say, hey, you need it because if you're kind of shooting videos about your drone, using them for YouTube, you should have a 107, and it's just never something I never really got into. I usually use my drone for recreational purposes only. In my spare time, I like shooting videos, using cameras, getting crazy angles, and photography is my thing. So my drone is more for photography with, I guess, some added hobby interest in vlogging, but it's really a photography piece. It's a camera. It's just like an action camera in this situation. So I've just happened to be going through, and I happened to be going through some of the threads, and I saw, or actually on my Google page, I saw these new regulations for hobbyist pilots and FAA regulations and de facto this and de facto that, and a lot of legal jargon. So I had to watch a lot of videos myself to actually figure out what the heck was going to affect the hobbyists about these new regulations. And I think I got the gist of it. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right on this, and I'm not saying the people that got this from 100% right, but I think I got the gist of this. And the majority of it is going to stay the same, but there are about 3 or 4 different changes to the current drone regulations for hobbyists that you would have to follow. Top on my list is the skills assessment test. Nothing new to me. I had the DJI drone. DJI, maybe a year or 2 ago, released a skills test that you had to take before you could actually function or actually pilot your drone. You had to pass it, or else it would shut you down, or even, I think, put you in geo-fencing mode. So skills test is something that almost every drone pilot wants any new drone pilot to have, because if you don't know the rules, you make a mistake, which is going to affect the whole community. So I wasn't kind of upset about that one. What I am more upset about with the FAA is the fact that they kind of released all of these regulations and kind of actually grounded a lot of hobbyist pilots because they didn't set up the systems to allow the people who are willing to follow the rules to do so. So they want us to go on and, kind of notify or actually get permission from the FAA for flying in controlled airspace. They want us to kind of, go on and take the skills assessment test, but we have no method of doing so. And it pretty much puts you or me or whoever bought their brand new Mavic drone, who may be in a controlled airspace, in limbo until, from what other YouTubers are saying, somewhere in the end of 2019, which is maybe like as late as November 2019. So all this summer, you won't have your drone to get those amazing video, to get that amazing video that you wanted, and the reason that you bought the drone. And that kind of upsets me. I understand that, yes, you are doing this, or the intention of this is to create better security in our airspaces. But I think if this were the way that you wanted to go, you should have taken some proactive attempts to maybe set up the systems, get them running, get them tested before you said, hey, I don't care how much money you spent on that new drone. It's going to sit and wait until we get this together before you can fly it. Now, in those videos that I've watched, they say that the FAA has set up a website that tells you where you can fly your drone legally until they get that stuff together. So there is information out there that says there are these little drone parks or areas that you can go to fly your drone if you have one right now, and you do not have the authority, you have not proven that you can actually pilot this drone through a skills assessment test, or not a skills assessment test, but through a written test, I'm assuming, and you still want to fly your drone, which is cool. I guess that is the saving grace that the FAA took to kind of appease some of us hobbyist pilots. Now, what I'm really, and I guess using this platform, what I'm really kind of like not understanding is why a lot of the other YouTubers that I've seen sort of have this like nonchalant, like, hey, just wait until the FAA gets their shit together and then you guys can go and fly your drones. And I'm only assuming that's because most of those other pilots are FAA Part 107 drone certified. So while they're able to go out and still follow the rules under the Part 107 and do the things that we are now required to do, it doesn't affect them. It affects a large part of the community that doesn't have a Part 107. And that, again, is frustrating. So I'm just going to put that out there. I am frustrated about the fact that the FAA implemented a bunch of rules that kind of grounded a bunch of pilots like myself, who was just a hobbyist who wants to follow the rules, not some guy who just wanted the best buy and bought a drone and wants to go break all the rules. But I don't have the means of actually getting the things that you want me to do done. So let's talk about some of the rules, and maybe some of you guys, and I'll use this platform for one thing. I'll try to explain it to the best of my knowledge, because again, I started my 107, but I never finished it. But I'll explain it to the best of my knowledge. Now, the rules that you will have to follow is when flying your drone in a controlled airspace. And a controlled airspace is like a 5 nautical mile circle around an airport with an air traffic control tower. So outside of that 5 miles, you are now in I can't remember what it's called, Class G airspace, which is technically considered uncontrolled airspace to a certain height and distance. Now, it depends on the size of the airport. If you think about the way the airspaces are set up, I think there's A, B, C, D, F, and G. One of them is missing. It's sort of a cone around an airport. Lower, it's like, I think D or E, and higher is A. You'll never make it up to 16,000 feet. And it's also about the height that you are from the ground. So let's say Class G, in certain situations, depending if you follow what they call a sectional chart, will tell you can fly outside of this airport, outside of this circle, which is the lowest class that you would be in that 5 nautical miles, which I believe is like D. So right outside of D, if you use an application like AirMap, you're allowed to fly at a certain distance or height. Actually, all distances in the case, it's the height. So closer to that circle, it's lower. It's usually around 700 feet, which we are all supposed to stay below 700 feet to begin with. And further away from that circle, it's up to 1,200 feet. That's the height of Class G airspace, unregulated airspace. So if you're in an area that does not have an air traffic control tower, you're technically in Class G airspace, and these rules kind of won't affect you. You can still kind of fly if you follow the other rules that they put in place. If you got your drone registered, if you got it labeled, if you've taken the test, which I don't know if GoPros, I'm not GoPros, I'm saying GoPro. I don't know if DJI's test would count, because you have to have some kind of proof that you've actually taken the test and passed it. And if you've, let's see, what was the last one? I can't remember what the last one was. I'm sorry. So I'm going to go past that. If you're outside of controlled airspace and you're in Class G airspace, if you're in Class G airspace and you're outside of that controlled airspace, you should be fine as long as you've followed all of the other rules of the FAA. Now, when are you affected? And here's the thing: if you live in a metropolitan area, if you live in a rural city, more of a city area, if you look on AirMap, those airspaces kind of overlap sometimes, right? I am in an area where I am like right outside of, I believe, a Class D, because I don't have my DJI drone anymore, a Class D airspace. About 5 nautical miles away from me, there's a small airport that has a 5-mile circle around it, and I am right outside of it. In fact, if I drive east, I will be outside of it even further. But when I was in San Juan, Puerto Rico, I was smack dab in the middle of San Juan, Puerto Rico. On the right side of me was San Juan International. On the left side there was a different airport, but it was more for commercial, I guess, import-export type use, industrial use. And I was right in the middle of that. And in the past, what you had to do is you didn't have to get permission from the FAA as you do now. In the past, you just had to notify. And to notify, if you had an application like AirMap, some airports would allow you to go in and say, hey, I'm going to fly here. This is my height, my altitude, and the pattern I'm going to fly. Except, and they would know that you were going to be in that airspace. Now what they're saying is that you actually have to get permission to fly in that airspace. What I'm worried about is that the air traffic controller, whoever is going to kind of make these decisions, is going to tell a lot of drone pilots that they cannot fly. And that was happening in certain situations, from what I understand, with people who tried to actually get permission from the air traffic control tower instead of notifying them in the past because they didn't understand the rules. The air traffic control tower would either not answer or say, hey, no, you can't fly. And that was not the case. In fact, it was a 107 holder that told me you don't have to get permission. You just have to notify them. So I'm very eager to find out how this is going to go. I want to know whether or not this is going to work out for, drone pilots. But even more so, I'm worried about how this is going to affect RC aircraft piloting overall, because from what I'm understanding, this doesn't just affect drone pilots, it also affects RC aircraft pilots. Now, I used to be part of a club that was at a park, which is one of those controlled areas that the FAA says you can go fly in. Most of them are AMA certified FAA certified flying parks, or like airfields that you can fly at. And that airfield that I used to fly at is not too far from a small airport that I don't know if it has a control tower. I think it does. Summit does have a control tower. So you normally would just fly because you were in that space, that airfield, that AMA airfield. And what they're saying now is that even if I am at that AMA airfield, since I'm so close to Summit Airport, I somehow have to contact Summit and say, hey, I want to fly here, which is, I mean, the amount of, I guess, flights that go on in the summertime. Can you imagine 20 or 30 guys showing up to not even just 20 or 30 guys, over a day, 20 or 30 guys multiple times calling the airport saying, hey, I'm at my airfield, can I fly? That could be very annoying. It would be enough for me to either find an airfield further away from the airport, if you could find one, or give up the hobby. And that's where I was on the fence with droning, I guess, for a while now. The regulations are getting so strict that it's just not fun anymore if you're one of these guys that, like myself, that wants to follow the rules to stay in the hobby. That's why I didn't really want to invest in 107, because I'm like, do I even want to be in this hobby? Because the FAA regulations are getting too strict for me to even do so, right? So that is my overview of the FAA regulations. I don't really fear them. I think that they are in place for a reason. I do question why the FAA took the steps that they have to, I guess, implement them by saying, hey, we're going to get this together, but you guys are going to have to wait until we get together. And I am, I guess, anxious whether or not this is going to have a positive or negative effect on the hobby. Because from what I see right now, it seems like it will be a pain in the butt to even go out. Like if I wanted to go out and buy, because I'm done with drones, to get even a foamy and fly it at my local AMA airfield. And then on top of that, even if you wanted to fly your drone at an AMA airfield, most of them require an AMA membership, which has gone up to like $75 a year for like a full membership. And then there's one that you can get, which is like a half membership for anything under 5 pounds. And the reason I didn't rejoin the club that I was in is because I knew what the timing and time that I had to fly, I wasn't going to use it that much. And the club required you to have a full membership to the AMA. So you still have to get permission from the club. You have to get your AMA membership. It is going to be an inconvenience for most pilots that don't want to go through all of that just to fly their drone. So anyway, that was my whole take on it. Hopefully, I don't know, it maybe gave you some information, some, I guess, layman's information that you probably didn't get from some of the other videos. Maybe you might have the same frustrations. You just got this new Mavic drone, and you want to do the right thing, and you go online to find out how to register it, and you find out that there's all these rules that you really can't fly because of the area that you're in. Leave some comments below and tell me what you think about it. In the meantime, I'm going to get back to filming some videos. Again, I've got to film a video about the new DJI action camera, Osmo Action, and I've also been working on a follow-up video to the Parrot Anafi drone, where I was going to give you a more in-depth view of the software and show you what actually that drone can do and whether or not it was worth your money. So hey, be back soon with information about this and my opinions on this. And again, thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for supporting the channel. I'll get back to you soon. Talk to you later. Bye.